Hey guys, this is Dino. Going to be going over a video about how you can make some gold or possibly real money off the RMAH. Just wanted to open up with what I've been doing for the past couple weeks. Sorry I haven't been on or making videos very often, but I've had a lot of RL stuff going on. I have a new baby coming on the way, so it's some great news, and had a lot of stuff going on at work that really impacted my playtime, and I wasn't able to play or make videos nearly as often as I wanted to, so I apologize to you guys for that. I've wanted to test the RMAH out for quite a long time, and so since I knew I wasn't going to be able to play the game for a little bit, I actually got that opportunity. I decided, alright, I haven't been selling my gear because I wanted to be able to put videos out on a consistent basis. So I went and sold my gear on the RMAH. I made about $400 off of it, and thought it was really awesome. So I took some of that money and I went and bought about $120 worth of gold because the gold prices on the forums were about $2 per million. And had a guy willing to sell me his entire gear set for 65 million. So I went and bought it, and I turned and flipped some of his items. I took items that I knew would sell for a really good amount on the RMAH, and I separated them from items that I knew were going to be very difficult to sell or not sell at all. And I went and sold those on the Gold AH. I made 40 of the 60 million back, and about 300 to 400 extra dollars on the RMAH. So I got my $120 back and then made another $180 to $280. So it was a really good trade. I've been trying to work the AH like that quite a bit. If you buy items in bulk, it can really work out for you. You can find quite a bit of sellers who they have old sets of gear and they're getting bored of the class and willing to sell it for really cheap, and you can sell some really high tier items. Now, not everything is going to sell, so you have to learn to piece what's going to sell on the Gold AH and what's going to actually sell on the RMAH and separate those out and do it. But if you're willing to put in the work to it, you can make a little bit of coin. Unfortunately, this isn't nearly as profitable anymore because of the markets crashing for both the gold and RMAH lately. But I mean, if you're willing to put the work and research into it, I think you can still make a little bit of money off of it, at least for the next couple weeks until everything absolutely crashes. I've personally been able to make about, I think, $800 now off the RMAH in the past week and a half. And I even turned a lot of that guy's items that he gave me, I turned it back around and made 40 million off of it. So not only did I make quite a bit of money, real life money off his set, but I was able to make 40 of the 60 million back, and turned around and spent 18 million of that on a brand new gear set for myself. So the set, it's not necessarily better, it's not necessarily worse than my old set. The stats are a little bit better, but it's about equal in terms of power as my old set. So I think some of you guys can apply the things that I've learned and shared with you, and you can use it how you want to. It's not going to be as profitable, like I said before, but I think you can apply some of the same things that I did, and they may benefit you. So just be careful, I don't want you to go out and spend out a bunch of real money on gold and try to flip it like I did. But if you do your research and just be really careful, I think you guys could have at least a little bit of success with it for the next couple of weeks. Now, let me start off by saying, don't try to sell crap on the RMAH. It's just going to be almost impossible to sell. That doesn't mean you won't sell it, but it's going to be extremely difficult for you to sell. Only the top tier items are going to sell on the AH. You're going to see a lot of stuff on there, and you're like, well, crap. That guy's got his stuff listed on there. I can make some money too. Nobody's buying that guy's crap. It's not good, and people aren't going to waste your money. A good rule of thumb is you want to look at it and go, okay, would I pay that amount of money if I had it for that piece of gear? And if you're not, then okay, what would you pay for it? And that's what your price point is going to be. A good example is I did get a storm shield. It was a 31% storm shield, some really great stats. It was part of the package deal for 65 million, and there's tons of them on there for $250. So your quick thought would be, oh man, I'm going to make $250 off this. Let me go ahead and list it there. I quickly researched the similar stats of the storm shield, and I put a max buyout of there of say $150. and a lot of people had it priced around there, but you know, there's some people pricing it less. And so I just went and priced it for about 70 bucks, and which was significantly lower than anyone else, and I sold it in about 5 minutes. So you want to use the same principle when you're selling your own stuff. Otherwise, you risk putting an item on there and it's going to stay there for a long, long time and you're never going to sell it, or it would just take you a real long time to sell. So if you want to make money and you want to make it quickly, the market keeps crashing and going lower and lower every single day. So it's by the time you get it sold, it's likely not going to be at that price point and you're going to sell it for less money than you could have a few days ago. So you want to price everything to sell and you want to do it significantly lower than everyone else so that way it sells really, really fast. Now, if you have a good item, say it's a little bit lower DPS, but it's got some great stats on it, and you want, say, about $150 for example. You know what? Actually, forget that. I'm going to use my example. I wanted about $60 to $70 for this item, but I tried putting it on there and it wouldn't sell. So what I did is I thought, how can I get this item to sell? How can I make someone want to pay more for it? So I went and had a 600 life on hit gem, which costs about 20 million, or in gold prices at the time it would have been about $40. And I put that gem in the weapon and I listed it for $150. So I listed it for $80 more than what I wanted the price point for. And it sold in about 10 minutes. It sold very quickly. And the thing is people misperceived the value of it because it had a 600 gem in it. So they thought for $150, I'm getting this great weapon. It's got a socket in it with a 600. It's a max 20 million gold socket. And they went and paid more for it because it's, you know, it's equal to a top tier weapon. So I sold it for much more than the price that I wanted. You know, forget that it cost me 20 million gold or $40. I ended up making 40 more dollars than my actual price that I was looking for the item. So that can be a good way to get the value you're looking for out of the item or try to increase it. Now, you don't want to apply the same principle to, say, every single piece of gear or item. You know, just because you put a gem in there, it's not going to increase the value. But it can, in certain situations, increase the value of an item or help you get the price for the item that you're actually looking for and help it sell in a way that it normally wouldn't. So if you're looking to make money off the ARM AH, you find a really good item or you find somebody willing to sell an entire gear set for a really good price point, which is a decent way to, I guess it's kind of like flipping money. You know, you flip a house, you buy a house for cheap, and then you turn around and sell it for more. You can do the same thing. If you look on forums or you have a decent amount of friends list and someone's like, hey, I'm just getting bored of this gear set, and I'll sell it to you for really cheap if you buy the whole set, and then you can turn around and separate those pieces to get some of your gold back and sell some of those pieces on the RMAH and make a pretty decent profit. So this can also be applied to the gold auction house. If you want to go ahead and you're not interested in RMAH, you're not interested in spending money or anything like that, you're just interested in gold, these principles still apply to the gold auction house. You know, you're just working with gold instead of real money. And the top tier items are still the ones that sell the most. If you have a lot of gold, I would dump all of it right now, buy whatever top tier items you can, because if you watch a video by Kriparian, he puts out some really good stuff. He'll explain why those top tier items are worth so much more than gold right now. Gold drops at about 5 to 7% every single day in value. Those are easy to track. You don't need Kriparian's videos to know that, but he does a really great breakdown of it. But you can see there's a really quick trend of gold just flooding the market. There's so much of it, everything's getting overpriced. Mid-tier items are dropping in value, and top-tier items just keep skyrocketing in value. So you want to dump all your gold and get as many assets as you can quickly, because pretty soon your gold is not going to be worth pretty much anything. So the more top-tier items you have, the more you're actually going to be worth. Now, say you don't have a lot of gold, you're just trying to make some of it so you can buy some of those top tier items. Apply the same principles I told you earlier about price points, where you want to try to sell for much lower than anybody else on the auction house, because the longer you have, if you get an item and you see that it's worth 2 million, I would argue pricing it at 1.5 million or even as low as 1 million. You want to undercut by 25 to 50% or even more in some cases. And the reason being is items are constantly flooding the market. And if you have a price that's close to someone else, and the chances of someone looking at your price and undercutting you really quickly are very high. There are so many people finding items all the time, so the chances of them listing something similar to yours for cheaper than you is very high. But if you sell it for so much less than anybody else, people will look at that price and be like, oh, well, that one person's an idiot. I'm not going to price it for nearly as low. And they'll price it for 1.9 million because the other person sold it for 2 and they want to get as much as they can out of it, and they never sell yours while you sell all your items all the time. So it may seem like you're making less because, oh man, that item's worth that item's worth 2 million. I only sold mine for a million. But in the end, you're selling your items constantly and making gold on a consistent basis, where the other guy is just never selling anything because he undercuts by only 5 to 10%, and no one ever buys his stuff because it's just too expensive or too close to the prices that are already there. So I always do selling quantity over quality. It's one of those rare scenarios that that's what you want to do, because if I keep holding out for the max amount I can out of an item, I run a major chance of never getting what I want for the item. The item never sells, and by the time it does, I'm down to the 1 million mark already. Because everything is decreasing in value, if you keep listing it for the most price, eventually it's not going to be worth that anymore anyways, and you're going to sell it at a million or less than you could have made a couple days ago, and you're just taking up one of your 10 slots because you're very limited in your slots for auctions. So you just might as well keep selling at really low price points to move as much product as you can and actually be making gold instead of keep missing out on opportunities because you've priced it too high. Now, the next point I kind of want to talk about is what is valuable. I think a lot of people are on the forums and they said, I've farmed for hours upon hours upon hours. I've done a million butcher runs and I haven't gotten a single valuable item out there. And I just don't think that's possible. I've done so many butcher runs myself, farmed so much in this game, and it's just not possible for you to do 100 butcher runs and get nothing of value. Well, let me phrase it. It's possible, but it's very unlikely that you wouldn't get at least one thing of value. So I think a lot of people don't understand the value of some of the things they find. Uh, Really high valuable stuff are MF, GF, so Magic Find and Gold Find. If you find those in values upwards of 30%, it can be an extremely valuable item. For example, I found a 39% Magic Find, 39% Gold Find item, and it sold for 10 million plus just with those two stats on it. Another valuable thing is certain items like a shoulder slot or boot slot or uh, pants or anything that has 120 to 2 stats. So, for example, you get 120 vitality and 120 dexterity, or 120 vitality, 120 intellect, and you get that on a shoulder slot. Both those at really high values can sell for a phenomenal amount of gold. If they're both just 90 and 90 or 100 and 100, there's a lot of those items in the market. But 120 plus, the market for that gets extremely expensive extremely quickly the higher you go with both of those values. Another valuable stat would be movement speed. It alone is not valuable, but it combined with decent stats like movement speed, all resist, and a base stat, or movement speed to really high base stats, or movement speed and crits, and anything that is combination of good stats. It has to be at least 3 combinations of decent stats or more to be a really valuable item. But good combinations of good stats will sell for a lot. Good combinations of just 2 stats are not going to sell very much because you can find so many of those in blue items. Blue items come very often with 2 very high stats, and so the market's going to be flooded with that kind of stuff. But when you start getting into 3, 4, 5, or higher stats on one item that are all really good, the price points just get higher and higher and higher for the combination of stats that you get. Now, other stats can be pretty value, and they just keep going up exponentially is on hit effects. You got on stun, uh, freeze, any of those effects, fear, that are CC effects are going to be very valuable. Even if you don't have a ton of base stats to go along with it, obviously it by itself is not very valuable. But when you start getting to, again, combination of a chance on hit with some decent vitality and all resist, or a decent base stat and all resist, it can be an extremely valuable item. More so than just about anything nowadays, with the discovery of how powerful it is. Another good combination is crit and crit damage. The trifecta of crit damage, and IAS are going to be extremely valuable. It's extremely rare, but if you can get all of those plus a base stat, you're looking at a top tier item in the multi millions. It's just extremely valuable. Other items would be certain set pieces. A lot of set pieces are kind of crappy and not worth very much, but you have pieces that are extremely rare for some reason, like the hunter ring, the demon hunter ring is extremely rare, and its value is much higher than a lot of things on the forums, and it's just so high because it's so rare. The stats on it aren't that great, but the rarity of it makes it worth a ton of gold. Another thing that's going to be increasing very much so in value over the next couple weeks, most likely is going to be high MF gear with some decent base stats on it. That's because Blizzard may be making changes to how MF works. You may no longer be able to switch to an MF set before you kill a mob and get the bonuses. You may be looking at possibilities of losing 5 stacks of NV if you change to Magic Gear before then, or it not applying. There's just all kinds of potential changes to Magic Find, where you may have to actually collect a really good set of Magic Find gear in order for it to be effective in getting extra Magic Find stuff. I could go on all night about the different types of rare and good items to sell on the AH, but the basics are you need something with at least 3 stats or higher in value in order for it to actually be worth something. And there's just certain stats to look for, like sockets or life on hit or chance to stun, different effects like that that actually add value to items. So if you can get 2 base stats or 2 good stats and then an on-hit effect, it can be something very valuable. So those are the types of things you want to look for. If you want to look for on the AH for cheap prices, a lot of people really neglect the max buyout feature. That can really help you search through a lot of the crap. It's going to eliminate things without buyouts, and it'll help you sift through just the mountain of items that are on the AH. So try to utilize that to help you find things quicker on the AH, and just look for very specific stats that you want on your gear, such as all resist or the on-hit effects, so that way it can help narrow your searches. If you guys have any questions, leave comments. Always post on my forum, whatever you want to do, and you guys have a good evening.